Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katia Bouazza. I run global banking for Latin America at HSBC. Thank you for being here. I flew back. I may not have my train of thoughts very well aligned because I flew back very late from London to do this. I'm very honored to be here. We're very, very privileged to be sponsoring this. Thank you, Susan, for partnering up with us for the second year. And hopefully there'll be a third year because we are very excited to, and HSBC takes this theme very seriously. For those who know me personally, you know that I'm very passionate about this. I do this almost like my nighttime job, going from different places and advocating for women, for gender equality, and for our colleagues within the bank and outside the bank as well. Today I'm also even more honored because I have three of my favorite colleagues here representing frontline leaders, business women, successful business women at HSBC, and bringing us different perspectives. I'm going to let each one of you, because I'm going to mess up the title for sure, introduce yourselves. And then we're going to start talking about different topics. Alexis? Yes.
First, I'll apologize. I have a quite bad cold, so I don't normally sound this deep, but today I'll be deep. My name is Alexis Vasquez Meissner, and I run HSBC Security Services for the Americas. And for those who aren't familiar with that, I always try to qualify it by saying it doesn't mean I run security for the buildings. I'm responsible for our custody, corporate trust, and loan agency businesses from Canada down through Argentina.
Hi, I'm Suzy Wright. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for our global markets business within the GB&M business, covering the same region as Alexis.
Hi, I'm Courtney Wright. I'm a relationship manager for our institutional clients in the Midwest right now. And prior to this, I spent most of my career with the bank, 14 years abroad and in other roles as well.
So in this panel, we're going to bring you the banking perspective to diversity. I think all the panels were amazing before us, and they brought a lot of different points of view. This year, I'm not a speaker, I'm a moderator, except when I agreed to do it, they didn't tell me that all the other moderators were professional anchor and reporters. So I'm going to have to play one today, and let's see how my banking skills have prepared me for this. But I have wonderful ladies with me here, and they're going to help me do the job. Why don't we start by very briefly, because we're running over time, sharing a bit of each of yours journey to how you got to where you got and how you got to become so successful. Alexis.
In the spirit of the gathering today, I would really draw on some of the previous panelists' conversations. I only saw the last one. And I, at the risk of sounding very repetitive with everything that they've said, first of all, table stakes, be really good at what you do. And I think that's first and foremost for everybody in the room to take away. So really being focused and having a brand that was recognized as being someone who delivered results and did what they said that they would do, and went above and beyond when I needed to was really important. And then everything that was discussed about finding the right mentors, the right sponsors, having open channels of feedback with people above me and on the side, having great men and great women, both in my personal and my professional network. I always refer to my personal network as my advisory boards. That's my board of trustees, are the people I go to for the raw deal, and then my professional advisory network where I can go and get that nudge and that push. And probably more than anything else, having people who continuously encouraged me to take risk in my career. That was a really, really important part of it.
So I've been at HSBC my entire career, starting at a very junior level in London. And basically, I agree with Alexis's point about being good at what you do and rounding your experiences. So I started in finance and basically moved around the different asset classes that a sales and trading operation would trade, and made sure I learned as much as I could about them. I moved to the US in 2006 for 2 years. It was the classic 2 years. I want to do the job. And then I've been here for 10 years. I moved from a single asset class business management role after the credit crisis into the deputy COO role, because I think people saw I could handle problems and issues. And then 2 years after taking the deputy role, I was asked to do the COO role. And I think, a combination of talking about what I wanted and going for it and making sure I had the experience to actually get the job, and having really strong support and supporting the teams that I had under me, because you're only as good as your team, and a combination of that has led me to where I am.
I think I would echo a lot of what was already been said, and I'm not sure how much new to add on this, but I've had a lot of really great sponsors throughout my career. I've changed roles 6 times in 14 years, so by moving from one place to another, I think I was lucky to have a wide network. I think sometimes you make a connection with someone, and not for an immediate purpose, but just because there's a connection. And those have come in very handy over the years. I think they've encouraged other managers to take a risk on me when I've moved from one business group to another. And I also think that I've kept a wide network of peers, and who have been surprisingly helpful in recommending me or giving good feedback to senior leaders when I've been looking at new roles.
You actually moved into my first question to you, so it's very good. Let's stay with you. You have an interesting role and career at HSBC because you're part of the IM program, which allows you to locate to different countries and see different businesses. Can you share that experience? Has that being a woman, having a family, has that played a role in this type of position?
Yeah, I think of course it has, and I get that question a lot. We don't yet have certainly gender equality amongst the international managers, the IMs as we call them in HSBC, and a lot of people say, well, how does it work, once you're married? Because I started off, I was single, and then it's how is it as a mother, and it's really challenging. Having said that, I think it's less challenging than some people assume. I think I've been really lucky. I did take fairly generous maternity leaves in transitioning roles. Both times, in fact, I was away from the bank and found new roles while I was on leave, with the support of senior leaders in the organization. But it's certainly difficult starting new and adapting as a woman in each time, and in many different cultures. I've worked in Europe, I've worked in Asia, I've worked in the Middle East, I've worked in the US, so it's, you have to find the right balance each time.
Alexis, you run a very successful business, and in your position as one of the most senior women in the Americas, how do you manage the diversity theme with your team, so sort of top down, and how do you do it basically, how do you manage it upwards with senior management? I know we sit on an executive committee together, and we're the only 2 women probably on that committee. So we've talked a lot about this. Can you share a little bit that experience?
Yeah, I mean, look, as a business leader, it's a very simple answer. I'm a role model. So to the point that Om made earlier, I'm very provocative when I'm looking for senior roles in particular in my organization. If a candidate slit comes and it's not what I think is representative of the world around us or what our clients look like, then I'm going to kick it back and say, you need to try a little bit harder. So I've been very, very diligent about that, and it's something I'm very proud of. Unlike the ladies on the panel, I've only been at HSBC for 2 years, and we've made some material strides. In fact, we're driving toward year-end performance period, and I just got asked by my boss, tell me how you're doing with your diversity goals, and I was very proud to say we're doing very well. So we've made some very consistent and concerted efforts in that, and by role modeling it, it begins to become the norm for the rest of the managers who report to me. So for me, it's as simple as that. The other side of the equation is a little bit more challenging because, certainly I have a voice, but I'm not on every panel. I'm not on every decision-making body that's going to decide who we hire into the organization. But I was reflecting to Katia earlier that our CEO had asked me in a meeting, how are we doing and how can I make the executive committee a little bit more comfortable for women? And we had, and more attractive to women as well, because it can be intimidating, actually. And I can assure you, as somebody who is much older than I actually look on this panel, you do get unconscious bias as soon as you walk into a room, right? So I have walked into a room once that somebody was expecting to meet with me as head, and they said, "Where's Jose?" And I said, "Jose's my admin. Was he supposed to be in this meeting?" And they said, "Oh, sorry. We thought Jose was the head of the business." So it's always there. And I think what we have on our side is a management team that is very keen and serious about trying to address that. And so the first conversation, the most recent one we had was, first of all, how do we just make the table more diverse in terms of thought process, problem solving, thinking, creative solutioning, lateral thinking. And that doesn't necessarily come down to, are you a man or are you a woman, are you black, are you white, are you Hispanic or not? That's how do you think, right? So first of all, when we interview people, what kind of critical questions are we asking them about problem solving? How do you deal with adversity? How would you manage this kind of situation to make sure that we don't have all like for likes at the table? I think that begins to unlock some of the openness and acceptance to more of the kind of physical diversity issues that we're talking about, and certainly makes it easier for, there are many times, Katia knows, when I'll sit on my hands thinking, should I say something now? Should I say something now? And I really want to, but it is hard. There's something to this concept of 30%, right? Where statistically it shows when there's at least 30% of one type of something in the room, that 30% feels more comfortable having a voice. So it's a journey, and we'll get there, but I feel very grateful that we have a very open management team who's very serious about the topic.
I'm there to support you anytime. Suzy, we sit on other committees, and we're also, one of the very few women in those committees. You even have a more challenging job, because we know this is a male-dominated industry. But Suzy works on the market side, so it's the sales and trading side, which is even more male-dominant. So can you tell us about diversity on not just HSBC, but on Wall Street in markets? And in your role as COO, how have you been able to overcome it? I mean, you work with very powerful men, and you are a very powerful woman. So tell us a bit about that.
Thanks, Katia. So it is definitely a problem. It's a problem across the industry that there are not enough women who are in the sales and trading seats. And it's not just senior women, it starts right at the bottom. It's the graduates, it's every level between them and the managing directors. The good thing is we're all talking about it. We are open about it. We are actively focused on it. I co-chair our graduate committee, and out of 6 people on that committee, there is another managing director, female. There aren't many of us, but 2 of us are on that committee. And our focus is ensuring that we are canvassing the right schools, that we are in the gender diversity groups at those schools, that we are getting the resumes in. We will not, to a question a lady answered earlier, we will not hire a woman because she's a woman, because we're setting her up to fail. It's very difficult what we do. So they need to want it, they need to be interested in it, they need to be good enough. But what we will do is make sure that we are looking for the resumes. We will hold that one slot open and do another round of interviews. We will actively canvass. We are thinking about incentives throughout their careers. What makes a woman at a junior level come back from maternity leave? She has to make that decision between the amount she earns and the amount she has to pay. What's her incentive to come back? Whose succession plan is she on? So really thinking about from the graduate level right the way up, when we have talented females, when we have women we want to keep, how do they know we want to keep them? How do they know what's in store for them? And it's having the dialogue, having the conversation. So the awareness across Wall Street, and nobody disagrees that the sales and trading floors would be better run, better managed, more profitable if there were more women, if there was more diversity. It's not a debate anymore about do we need it, which I think is a good thing. Now it's about how do we get it. And I think for me, it is difficult being the only woman, around. But I think that's why I'm more passionate about fixing that, about hiring more people into my own team, being a mentor, being a sponsor, making sure that women feel comfortable, being advocates for each other, supporting each other. I don't think it will change in my career, but I have a 2-year-old daughter. I'm hoping by the time she's in the seat, it's a little bit better.
Coming back to your role, and you didn't touch upon that, but let me put it in a different way. How do men perceive tough women?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, they don't really like it. They don't. And someone mentioned it on the panel before. It's this aggressive, men are confident and assertive. Women are aggressive, but we're different. Men and women are different. We're perceived different. We just kind of have to live with it. And if someone says you're a bit aggressive, don't be insulted by it. Take it as a compliment. Actually, I was assertive. I had my view. Don't be shy. Be okay being different. We are women. We're not men, and that's okay. But look at the way they behave. Look at how they act, and when they are confident, when they'll make their point. To Alexis' point, when you've got that point you want to make, I don't hold myself back anymore. I will
Suzy's
make
my
the
role
point.
model in many meetings.
I will speak up. I will, make that point, and being respectful, obviously, of my colleagues, of male or female, but trying not. I used to be very insulted when someone would say, "Oh, they're type A women." You hear that comment and things like that, and it would insult me. It's like, I don't get insulted by it anymore. I just try and move forward with it and be confident and not worry too much about the way somebody might perceive you, as long as you're, being respectful and non-offensive.
But you also have the British accent, so you
Yes.
can say anything, and it
Yes.
sounds good, and people will listen to you, so definitely a plus. Coming back, Courtney, to you, how important is, we started to talk about role models. How important to you is a senior female role model? And to you, you are from a different generation, although you can't tell, right? But from your point of view and from the generation point of view, that's coming up.
Well, it's essential. I think when I got the email from you, Katia, asking me to be on this panel, I saw the names on it and I thought, yes, I want to sit up there with them. This is great. These are 3 of the most senior women we have in the organization in this region. And I think that having the senior leadership is a big part of retention for people at my level. Seeing leadership that looks like us, as it might seem kind of superficial that it's just gender, but I think it's really important that we see leaders that reflect us, and that could be race as well. And there's other aspects, but I do see the change. I do see the focus. Alexis, like you said, when I've spoken to our CEO, he immediately asks me the question, what can we be doing more? So I know it's on the agenda, and I know we'll get there.
I definitely think so. I've seen a big shift and a big change, definitely within HSBC, but also on the street. It's actually, the topic is a cool one today. A few years ago when you talk about diversity and it was like, okay, it's one of those must-haves. But I think today it's being viewed with a very different light, and it's a lot more positive to be in conferences like this one. But coming back to role model, coming back to sponsorship and mentorship, I know the other panels touched upon it quickly, but Alexis, from your perspective, how important, and we know it's important, but really, how much has it influenced your career having the right sponsor and probably earlier on the right mentor?
Yeah, I mean, sponsorship has been essential to everything in terms of incremental successes as I've gone through. And I think that the difference, I didn't catch if we talked too much about what I would say is the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. The mentor is one you can go through the good, the bad, and the ugly with. They give you constructive advice. They're a sounding board. The sponsor is one who's banging the table for you every single day and is counting on you to be really phenomenal at what you do, because they're putting personal credibility and skin in the game to help support your career. So, I wouldn't be at HSBC without a strong sponsorship network. I was sponsored in by 2 other women. who really stood behind me and counted on me to deliver. So their reputation is tied into whatever I do for this organization. At my previous role, at my previous bank where I was for just nearly 13 years, same thing. And those relationships, I'm really not a fan of paired sponsorships. I know this is kind of the du jour thing that's going on in organizations, but I think that sponsorship relationship really has to be grounded in a very personal connection with the person who's doing that sponsorship, because you want it to be genuine. I want it to be genuine, and I want that person to advocate for the right role at the right time for me on my behalf, and I want to be able to comfortably go to them and say, hey, listen, I see this, can you help me get there? So I can't express how important sponsorship has been in my career, but I would just kind of caveat that by saying that it's all been organic sponsorship. That's what's been really materially important to me.
I agree. I don't know about
yeah,
Suzy.
I completely agree. I think it's really important that it's natural and it's organic, and that there's a commonality. You feel comfortable talking to somebody. And I think the programs are good. In the absence of anything else, the programs are good. You'll have somebody you can talk to, but don't feel like you can't reach out to someone you've seen in a meeting, that you've heard them speak, you've been impressed by something they've done that you've been aware of, and reach out to them and ask, can I have a coffee with you? Can we have a conversation? If that leads to a more formal mentoring relationship, great. But, I get quite flattered, and I know we all do, when junior people reach out to me and say, I was at your town hall, or I heard you speak, or I read this paper, and Can I meet you? Can you give me some advice? And yes, you've got to manage the hours in the day, but we all make time for that. And, you can get very good relationships from that. And the sponsorship point is key as well. It is different. They're not the same thing. Sponsorship, having someone who is around the table when promotions are being discussed, who's talking about you, who's an advocate for you, who has the skin in the game. They are different, and they often get just sort of muddled into one. You need different things at different times for different topics.
I know I spend a great deal of time mentoring, especially informal mentoring. I think is very effective, both men and women. One question I have: do we feel that, within our organization in banking in general, women are seeking, are aggressively looking for mentors, or to develop relationships, or to seek sponsors? Do they value how important it is for their promotions and for their development? Courtney, if you want to take that.
One thing that kind of reminds me is, in June I went on a 2-day leadership course. It was aimed at sort of mid-career women in the bank, and we talked a lot about mentorship and sponsorship. It was probably the key theme of that event. And I was shocked at the tables that I sat at, how few people had thought about it at all, or thought they had no sponsors. And once we went through the exercise and talked about it, they realized, oh, actually, I do have sponsors, but I might not be nurturing that relationship. So I think that certainly that cohort of women, I think, are going to start being more aggressive. And I think as we explain how important it is to everyone else in the organization, I think it's going to pick up speed.
Suzy, what else can banking be doing to raise this awareness? Because I completely agree with Courtney. I feel that men are more eager to knock at your office door and ask for the coffee, or ask for time than women.
I think there's a lot more that we can do, and I think it starts with time. We're all incredibly busy. Everybody has a packed agenda, but we need to do more to block out that time to actively, promote this, to actively talk and offer these things to the more, junior ladies or men in the organisation. And then I think once you start doing that, once you get more and more people, then they're talking to each other. Oh, I had a coffee with such and such. I've got this new mentor. This is really going well. I'm going to talk to my mentor about it. Oh, I haven't got one of them. How did you get it? And you start that flow. But we've got to just take more time out of our busy schedules to focus on promoting these opportunities, advertising them, and getting people talking about it.
Alexis, one last question. We have started a senior women network at HSBC along with Suzy and others, and we find that some of these topics still apply to very senior women within the organization. So in your discussions with senior management, what else are you highlighting? What else are you bringing to the table about these hurdles that we have to overcome?
I think the most valuable thing that we are able to do is give them feedback. And going back to the 30% concept, I intimated to our CEO again that post a full day workshop around risk, everyone's favorite topic, right? Where I was one of 2 women participating in a very senior room. I had ideas and thoughts and things that I just wasn't really comfortable letting come from my head out through to my mouth. And the saving grace, and where I started to warm up, was there was this other woman in the room, and she had no problem saying what she needed to say. And it suddenly opened up a real comfort for me to be able to have that conversation. And actually, it's that sharing, that piece of information that I shared with our CEO that led to the conversation about what do we need to do to make sure that everyone has a voice at our table. So I think the most, as I said, I'm never going to be, I'm not the person sitting on every panel making every recommendation. I sit on our U.S. People Committee, so I certainly have a voice from a macro perspective around what we're doing. And we have a very progressive agenda that's set from the top down there around what we do on the diversity topic. But after we all leave the room, we're all individual actors who are either doing the right thing because it feels like it's right in their hearts and in their minds, or they're doing it because they're told that they have to, and they'll come around to it. So if we hold them accountable and we continue to share the feedback around what it feels like to be the other. I mean, I think some of the challenge that we all experience is when we talk about the junior levels, more junior levels in the organization, we have gender parity, right? We have gender equality. As you start to come up to the level that we're at, we are a very small minority of executives at that table. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. So
female leaders on the front line.
Female leaders on the front line, exactly. So the numbers speak for themselves, and I think sharing that experience, telling management directly what it is that we need from the organization for us to continue to feel comfortable. And by the way, we're probably the best recruiters, right? Because we've got this network. So tap into us, use us, leverage us, talk to us about who we're sponsoring. And then most importantly, and this is something I would leave every female, anyone who's a manager in this room and who is in the position to hire people, take a punt on people, because what I have found is when we push the diversity agenda, we'll bring in a great woman, and she'll be phenomenal, and she will tick so many boxes, but she won't have the 2%. And the hiring manager will say, didn't quite tick all the boxes. And I have been on a relentless campaign to push through this through our organization. We can teach someone 2%. We can't teach someone 98%. So if they're 98% or 99% or even 90%, but they've got potential and leadership and they can learn, we should be taking bigger punts and bigger risks, educated and informed risks on who we bring into roles.
On this high point, I think we have time for a couple questions. Okay, great. So we're going to turn it over to you, and hopefully we can continue this discussion. Okay, one question.
Hi, Dion Bermudez. I kind of want to tie in kind of two concepts. On one side, something that you said about men being much more, forward-leaning, knocking on your door. I find that as well. The guys in my organization are much more willing to come in, ask for what they want, and then to the mentorship, sponsorship side. I always tell the young women in the organization to seek out a mentor or seek out somebody that they admire to emulate the things that they do. But I feel like, and some of them come to me, but then I feel like they're shy about it. So is it valid for us to seek out people to sponsor or mentor and kind of drag them in? I don't know if you can speak to that.
Suzy?
I think it is valid. Look, there's not a perfect way to do this. What I would do in that situation is probably get together a group of mentors and a group of mentees, a lunch, some cocktails. Let them find each other. So you're forcing it, but you're not pairing it. So let them actually chat and say, what do you have an interest? Do you have children? Do you support a certain charity? Do you like a certain sport? Let them find something that creates the organic. Because I still go back to the point that we were making, that you want it natural. You want an interest. You want, when someone gives you advice, you need to respect that sort of person's view. Otherwise, you're not necessarily going to take it. So create an environment, an event, advertise it, promote it, but then still allow it to be organic, I would say.
I direct it. I mean, full stop. So, there's two sides of that equation. You need to know the person you're asking, and you need to know what they're looking for and what's important to them, and you need to know the person who is asking, so that's asking you to help. So, it doesn't always work, and that's the that's the warning sign that goes on this. It might not be a perfect fit, but give it a go. Be on your A game. See how the chemistry works. And if it works, great, you found somebody. And if it doesn't, let's get feedback. Let's figure that out and help you get on the next path. But I definitely call people, so don't be surprised, ladies, if I call you sometime.
The question in the middle of the room.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this. My name is Mudir Periasikun with Shabak Services, a women-owned small business in Maryland. Thank you, panel, for everything you've said, and you've pretty much talked about how you inspire women within your agency or your company. But we also have a big challenge for women in the banking industry, which is getting loans for businesses. How have you, as women, tried to support that process for women, especially women-owned small businesses?
So, I mean, we're not actually in the retail space, so it's not something that I think any of us would have directly done. But if it's an important issue that we're not aware of, can absolutely talk to our colleagues in the retail side and try and understand, what are HSBC doing in general, what are the banking industry doing in general. But without direct retail experience, I think that's hard for us to comment on. But I'm happy to take your details. We can come back and put you in touch with someone else who might be able to talk more frankly about this point.
All the way in the back. Sorry. Both. We'll take one here and one all the way in the back there.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Shills. I'm with BlackRock. So I think the conversations that you're having are very applicable to our world as well. My question is going back to kind of the sponsorship, career progression side of things. There's always an element of knowing yourself and trying to direct where your career goes, but then also building those relationships with sponsors that can help to kind of pull you forward or may have an opportunity in mind for you that you might not think of yourself. So I'm interested for the ladies on the panel, how has that worked for you in reaching where you are today?
Courtney, maybe you can talk about, because you've had to switch. You've got to take a big risk every time, right?
Yeah, a few of those times, yeah. No, it's a really good question. I think that in the 6 roles that I've had, 2 were sort of what I'd call push roles. Like I was kind of told, this is what you're going to be doing, like my very first job at the bank. And the other 4 have been through my network, through sponsors. In my current role in Chicago, I moved from corporate to institutional, which is, in our world, night and day. It's really, really different. And I had a senior sponsor who really just said, it's worth taking a risk. And the hiring manager was able to take that, on its word. So I think that's been really helpful. But I've definitely taken roles that I wasn't either sure I could do. I knew I was taking a risk, and things that I maybe hadn't thought of. I took a role in commercial banking for a while in the Middle East, which I wasn't sure entirely what I'd get out of it, but actually it was a great opportunity to manage a team earlier in my career than I would have been able to do, for example, in global banking, which is a little bit of a tighter structure.
I want to add something. When the opportunity comes up, you become the natural person to get it. And I think this is something that women don't spend enough time putting themselves out there, but also saying great things about themselves. I mean, you don't want to sound too arrogant, maybe. But it's better to sound a little arrogant rather than hiding somewhere. So it's, even with the sponsor, the relationship is two-way. It's never just you're waiting to see what your sponsor is going to support you on.
So I have a quick anecdote on that, and I'm a self-confessed underseller. I'm terrible at selling my own personal brand. But I made a New Year's resolution a couple of years back that I was going to be more assertive and open about what my own career aspirations are. And I was having lunch with a very senior executive in our organization recently, and he said, what do you want to do next? And I said, I'm not really sure, but I think in maybe 5-10 years, and I just thought for a moment, do I say it? I think I'd like to be the CEO of the US Bank. And I let it land. I just let it land, right? And I was shocked. His response was, well, let's talk about how to get you there. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect that to be the answer. Now, I'm not going to get there tomorrow, of course. But to Katia's point, I'm on that radar screen. And anybody who's thinking about me now, who's involved in there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes with my career. I know that. Anybody who's talking about me is going to be aware that that's a potential aspiration for me. So I do encourage you, be realistic. Fortunately that landed okay, but be realistic, but be bold and be honest about what you want to do with your careers and what drives and motivates you. And then make sure you find the right ears so that you've got people pushing and fighting in your corner.
We have time just for one more question. There was one all the way in the back. If you still want to ask it, yes.
Yes, I asked the previous question about advocacy, sponsorship, and mentorship. Again, my name is Daniela, founder of the Fairy God Sister. My question is, there's this idea, we talk a lot about the glass ceiling, but there's also the idea of the labyrinth, where there are a lot of different things that pose challenges to women as they progress towards leadership. And I'm just wondering, what are some of your ideas around creating more cultures in the workspace that allow women to better navigate the labyrinth in their search for mentors and sponsors and advocates, because it's not linear. But there are a lot of different avenues. So how do you actually get them connected? And I know there's a mention about being a little bit more proactive, but for younger people, they don't really have the confidence to be more proactive, nor do they necessarily know how to go and seek these individuals. So what is your advice to them as well?
I mean, I think Katia touched on what she has done for us as a group of senior women, where she's created this group of us. Literally, she's put us together, she's connected us, we have dinner, we talk, we discuss. We're taking that principle and we're doing it at other levels. So as our graduate class, comes out of the rotational program, they become permanent members of the team. We're keeping those, young ladies together. We're telling them, you're each other's network now at the junior level. Support each other, help each other. We're pairing. The senior women are all taking one of the graduates as their own mentors, and we're doing things like that and just encouraging the discussions, bringing the women together. And as Katia said, she's done it at our level. We're promoting that down the levels, getting people, not just women, but with common issues, common concerns, common interests, getting them together more and helping them sort of talk these things out and helping them try and resolve them. But there isn't an answer to this, unfortunately. I wish there was. I wish there was something that I could do that would just, solve this issue. I think it's constantly challenging ourselves to think of new things to do and bringing people together that all care about these issues to come up with different ideas on how we fix them is what we need to do.
I think we've run out of time, so I would like to thank you all for participating, being here. I'd like to thank the America Society, Susan, and the rest of the team. Thank you for having us, and we look forward to chatting at the tables. Thank you, panel.